Every person needs to know, learn, and solve these secrets if they're going to become successful and win at the game of life. Successful people. What makes them successful? What are their habits? What are their beliefs? What are their practices? What separates successful people from everyone else? And why are they happier than everyone else? So let's start by defining what success is. Let's give a working definition to the word success. Earl Nightingale said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The immediate thought that comes to my mind is, why is it that year after year, decade after decade, century after century, millennia after millennia, everything is different, yet everything is still the same? Why is it that so many people who are living in some of the richest countries in the world, why is it that so many people are struggling just to get by, just to make ends meet? What's holding people back from becoming their best selves, the best version of themselves? If you look at first principles, there are only two underlying factors that are directly related to the gap between those who are successful and those who are not. Those who are not successful play by rules that do not exist. Those who are successful, they play by rules they create. So what are those rules? Which takes us back to our question. Why is it that so many people struggle? Their parents struggled. Their grandparents struggled. Their great-grandparents struggled. And they're passing on that same struggle to their children. Have you ever thought about that? Generationally, struggles are handed down. Generationally, struggles are passed down. Why? Because your great-grandparents did not know the rules. Your grandparents did not know the rules. Your parents did not know the rules. And it's possible that some of you out there, you're trying to play by rules that do not exist. So what are the rules? What are the rules that successful people live by that guarantee their success? Number one, they have developed a growth mindset. That means they've figured out themselves early. They've learned how they learn. And the only way to figure out yourself is by trying to figure out yourself. Josiah, that sounds convoluted and confusing. What do you mean the only way to figure out yourself is to figure out yourself? Over the last 5 years, have you sought out anyone to help you find out what your blind spots are? Have you gotten other people's perspective about your strengths, about your limitations? Have you sat down and asked anyone, what do you think are my strengths? What do you think are my weaknesses? What are my blind spots? What do you see about me that I don't know about myself? What do you think I am good at? What do you think I'm not good at? And how do you think I can improve in those areas? Have you had those conversations? Developing a growth mindset is about learning about yourself. What do you know about yourself? You have to take time to know who you are. And that's one of the key contributing factors leading to the success of successful people. When it comes to success, you cannot self-assess. You have to place yourself in a community where you're going to get honest feedback about who you really are. Number two, successful people continually invest in themselves. They're always attending some workshop, seminar. They're reading books. They're enrolled in some educational courses. They're always doing something that's going to add value to who and what they do. Because they understand this, when you increase your value, you have more value to add to the marketplace. You know, when we think about money, we think of money as being compensated for a service that's provided. Money is a little bit more than that. Money is just a measurement, a way of keeping score of how much value you are deploying to the marketplace. The more valuable you are, the more value you can deploy. And in exchange for deploying value, you're going to be compensated. Have you heard of the law of compensation? The law of compensation says the amount of money you earn is always in direct ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. The need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Successful people increase their earnings capacity. How do you do that? Well, my dad worked for one company for 33 years. And if you think that the way to move up in this world, in this time, is to stay with one company and get 3%, 5% increase year after year, nah, that's not going to work. you're going to fall behind, because eventually and over time, inflation will eat at those numbers. So in essence, you're basically making the same year 1, year 10, year 20, year 30. So how do you increase your earnings potential? Well, read that book, take that course, attend that workshop, get a mentor, pay that mentor. You're going to pay someone if you want to be better. An investment in yourself necessitates you opening up your wallet. As you increase your earnings potential, you're going to take your services to someone who sees that you're more valuable. That's one of the easiest ways to increase your earnings capacity. And as you increase your earnings capacity, it becomes a force multiplier. So that $2,000 extra you're making a month, you can take that $2,000, put it in a high yield savings account, or you can put it in the S&P. And over time, let's say after 1 year, you can take that money. Let's say that money did not grow and it's just $24,000. You can put $8,000 of rehab into a distressed property, turn around and sell that property for $50,000. Your original investment was $8,000. You sold the property for $50,000. You made $42,000 off of an $8,000 investment. That leaves you with a total of $58,000. So that's the $16,000 from the $24,000 plus the $42,000 from the $50,000 investment you made. That equals $58,000. You made a 625% return on an investment in one transaction. What job is going to give you a pay increase of 100%, much less 600%? And there are so many examples and so many other ways you can do that, but you want to focus on increasing your earnings potential. Successful people leverage their ATM, assets, time, and money. Josiah, what do you mean successful people leverage their assets? You have person 1, you have person 2. Person 1 is married with 2 children. Person 2 is married with 2 children. They both make $90,000 a year. They both have 2 vehicles. Person 1, however, thought about something. I can leverage my assets. We have 2 vehicles. We can rent our vehicles. And a few extra $100 that was bringing in, they started saving and they realized, wait a minute. Renting one vehicle at $455 a week will bring in an extra $21,840. The second vehicle will bring in $6,240. Both vehicles combined will bring in an extra $28,080 a year. Here's another example. Person 1, person 2, $90,000. Person number 1 say, hey, why don't we convert our garage into a space that we can rent out? Why don't we use the storage room into another space where we can rent out? Now we have a 2-bedroom apartment that we can rent out. We can do Airbnb, or we can just rent it out as a regular rental. And all of a sudden, this person who's still making $90,000 is now generating income, because we're talking about leveraging asset. They're now generating between $1,200 and $2,400 a month by leveraging their assets. So that's the A for ATM. What about the T? Their time. So you have another family. Family 1 is making $90,000. Family 2 is making $90,000. But family 1 decides, you know what? We need to do something different to increase our income. How do we do that? Why don't one of us try to see if we can work from home? Rather than spending 40 hours at the job, I can spend 20 hours getting the same amount done, and the extra 20 hours that I have, I can do coaching, some mentoring, some consulting. That's one example of how successful people leverage their time. What about the M? Their money. So remember those families, one making $90,000, but one have found a way to increase their income. They were doing well on $90,000. So what they realize now, well, with that extra $50,000 we were making, what we can do is we can invest in real estate. And you just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's how successful people leverage their money. So let's say your employer does not give you the option to work from home. What do you do then? Well, can you still leverage ATM, your asset, time, and money? Of course you can. Let's say you work 8 hours a day. Let's say you work 40 hours a week. Between the hours of 5 to 9 p.m., that's 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 4 hours. Times 5 days a week, that's 20 hours. Let's say you have an additional 8 hours on Sunday, 8 hours on Saturday. So you have 20 hours during the week, 16 hours during the weekend. That's 36 hours times 52 weeks. That's 1,872 hours, extra hours you have to do whatever you want to do. So with an additional almost 2,000 hours, you can accomplish anything you want. You just have to be creative. You have to think outside the box. Successful people take risks. They bet on themselves. The level of risk you're willing to take often correlates with the level of opportunities, paid opportunities that come your way. Successful people do things that you're not necessarily comfortable doing, but they're looking at the long term. They're looking at the big picture. They understand that what they're doing today becomes easier with time. And after a while, They don't have to leverage their time. They can hire other people to leverage their time. Successful people set their children up for success. Now, this is an area of contention among so many people, and I do not understand why. There's even a word called Nepo babies, Nepo kids, Nepo standing for nepotism. Why are people angry that parents are setting up their kids for success? Why are people angry that parents are giving them a leg up? What's wrong with that? How did we evolve to believe that parents doing their best for their children, giving their children every advantage they possibly can, when did that become something so vile, something so evil, something so sinister, something so wrong? When did we start believing this nonsense that it's unethical or immoral to give our children an advantage in society, to set them up for success? Oh, Nepo babies, Nepo kids. Oh, they're only successful because their parents give them money. If every succeeding generation is to get better and our job is to provide the best life for our children, shouldn't we start early and give our children every possible advantage we ought to give them? Every possible advantage we can offer? Shouldn't we give that to them? I'll use my own personal story. I have 4 children, and my youngest 2 have never worked for anyone. My first 2 children, they did have one job. They only worked for one job, a short time. And after that, they've only worked for themselves. And that was on purpose. That was intentional. I did not want them laboring for anyone but themselves. And I facilitated the means by which they can do so. As a parent, that's my job. And I'm proud to have done that job. I'm proud to still be doing that job. I've given them a decade to get it right. And I'll support them during that decade. Financially, that's what I've done. What's wrong with that? Do you know you don't have to learn from your own mistakes? Do you know you don't have to learn from your own failures? You can learn from the failures of others. You can learn from the mistakes of others. I'm a former pilot, and I'll tell you what, the lessons that we have learned in aviation over time came from other people's mishaps. As much as I don't mind learning from my mishaps, I don't want to learn from my mishaps in aviation. Mishaps in aviation are usually disastrous, usually cost lives. If I own a business and my children are interested in being a part of that business, do you think I'm going to go on the outside to bring someone to run the business? So you're telling me it makes more sense to invest in someone else's future than my own children, my own posterity? Think about that. The only thing I can attribute that mindset to is envy and jealousy. That's the only thing. I understand this is not everyone's thinking, but it's so bewildering that so many people are voicing this nonsense. If your parents did not do it for you, don't get upset at the parents who are doing it for their children. If your parents did not do it for you, blame your parents. If you have children and you're not doing your absolute best to give them every advantage, that's your decision. But don't condemn those who choose to do otherwise to give their kids an advantage. Successful people set their children up for success. Successful people also set their friends up for success. Well, there you go again, Josiah. If it's not nepotism, it's cronyism. Well, call it whatever you want. Go to Asian communities. Look at the success they enjoy. Do you see Asian communities hiring whites to do their jobs? No, they hire their family members. They hire people that look like them. I would say that 50% of the construction contracts I get come from word of mouth. I did some quality work for this Indian family, and they said, listen, I have another family member who needs similar work done. Are you able to do it? I say, absolutely. They said, we'll give you a good recommendation. That family called me, and before you know it, I was part of that community, and all of them called me to solve their problem. Why? Because I had something to offer, something of value to make their lives easier. And now I'm friends with many of them. So yes, successful people set their friends up for success. How valuable are you? How much value can you deploy? How do you package your value? What does it look like? What problems are you solving? What do you bring to the table? Successful people share their success secrets. Look at this platform. It doesn't matter what niche you're in, there's someone that's sharing their expertise, how to become better in that niche. Successful people understand the law of conversion, the law of reciprocity, that whatever you pour into the universe will be poured back into you with the exponential flow and force of time. Successful people are experts in their crafts. That goes without saying, obviously. They're good at what they do. Successful people do not play the victim role. I'm a black man living in the United States of America. Not once have I ever said that I lost out on an opportunity because they gave it to a white man. because of my race. Well, Josiah, that's your experience. I can tell you firsthand that I was overlooked for a position and they gave it to a white person. Have you ever thought perhaps that white person was more qualified than you? If you're good at what you do, if you're exceptional about what you do, if you have real measurable value to deploy in the marketplace, you're not going to get looked over. You're not going to get looked over. I'm in the construction industry and have been in this industry for 20 years. And earlier on in my career, I worked with people, not just any person, not just any group of people. I worked with people, the decision makers, people who fired and hired. I worked with people who were active members of the Ku Klux Klan. And guess what? They made it known that they did not like vinegars. On a project with 200 people, 500 people, sometimes my brother and I would be the only black people on that job, the only black skilled people on that job. We were the last people to be let go, the last people to be laid off. Why? Because we brought something valuable to the table. We didn't come to the job with any attitude. We didn't come confrontational. We came with one aim in mind, how we can make that company money and how we can get a piece of the pie. And these people identified that in us. They're like, oh, you guys are different. They laid off other whites before they laid us off. The job came to an end and they found things for us to do so we can remain at the job. They not only tolerated us, in fact, they invited us to other projects. We became friends with many of them. There are two ways to look at life. You can look at what's happening to you, or you can look at what's coming from you. What's happening to you, that's being a victim. What's happening from you, that's creating value. You have the choice. What role do you want to play? You can only choose one. Whatever you believe yourself to be, victim or value creator, that's what the world is going to treat you like. If you're a value creator, that energy will be reciprocated and you will get value in return. What has your focus has your life. And whatever follows I am, you become.